This episode is brought to you by Happy Way, 100% natural supplements that are full of flavour to support you on your health and wellness journey. Living life the happy way. Before we get started today, a trigger warning that this episode discusses miscarriage. If you or someone you love needs support, 24-hour free counselling is available from Lifeline by phoning 13 11 14. Welcome to Life with Danny Duncan, where we talk about everything from nutrition, movement and mindset to the bullshit that's been holding you back to live your best life, completely raw and unfiltered. I'm your host, Danny Duncan. I'm a featured nutrition and fitness coach, author, business owner, speaker, mum of 3, including twins, and I'm going to let you into the behind the scenes of my life. Oh, and we'll have a bit of a laugh along the way, don't worry. It won't all be serious. I'm going to be the one to make you get uncomfortable with your reality and challenge you to make changes for good. So if you're feeling stuck in where you are in life and are ready to change, this podcast will unpack the reasons why you may be feeling this way and help you with tools to make changes in your life. There's no bullshit here, just real talk. So if you're ready, let's dive in. There's no time like the present. Welcome back to Life with Danny Duncan. So I feel like this is probably old news now, but I'm pregnant. And there's a whole backstory, so I'm going to share it with you today on today's episode. But I also wanted to get deep and raw about the emotions behind this pregnancy, post 2 miscarriages, and not necessarily wanting 4 kids. So yeah, let me explain. I want to delve into how I'm feeling. I'm looking after my mindset, my body, and of course my 3 kitties at home, and of course Chris, and hopefully help others that have gone through something similar or maybe are on a similar path to me. So grab a cuppa, sit down, relax, or go for your walk, jump in your car, and let's chat. So, yes, we are pregnant. We're about to have 4 children, hopefully. And I hate saying that at the end of the sentence, so I'm going to actually make a promise to myself that I don't say that anymore. But I suppose the reality is last year we lost 2 babies. And I suppose the reality behind that is, did we even ever want 4 children? I mean, let's go back to the beginning. So when Chris and I met, we found out really early on about each other that, yes, we wanted kids. It was one of the first things I asked him when I knew I was falling for him because, I mean, I was 31. Not that my clock was necessarily ticking, but, I'd only just met him and I didn't want to fall in love with someone to then find out that they didn't want children. I feel like there could have been nothing worse going, I have to break up with this person because he doesn't want kids. So one night we're lying in bed, literally maybe 6 weeks after we met, and I've said, I'm going to ask you a really intense, heavy question, and I hope you don't run away, but I kind of need to know because I'm really starting to like you and I don't want to fall for you to then find out that this isn't the case. He was like, just ask the question. So yeah, I said, do you want kids? And he was like, yeah, I do. I was like, awesome, that's all I need to know. He was like, no, we can keep talking about it. I was like, well, how many kids do you want? He was like, just 2. I was like, me too, 2. And he was like, well, when do you want these kids? And sort of in my head, I thought, gosh, I kind of would like them in the next couple of years. But just to soften the mood of the conversation, because already it was quite heavy, I said, I'd like to have one by the time I'm 35. And I was 31. So I was like, in the next 4 years. And he was like, yeah, that's cool. Anyway, life continued on. And Chris, being the impulsive, needs to have things now person that he is, I reckon it was like a month later and he was like, you know that kid conversation we had? And I was like, yeah. He's like, let's have them in like the next 2 years. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like my head going, yes, that's way better. And by this stage, I fully knew I was in love with him and we'd said the I love yous. And I think we had also discussed moving in together because we moved in so quickly, but that's a story for another time. And then maybe a couple of months later again, he was like, let's try next year. And I was like, okay, this is like getting pushed more and more and more and more. And then, no joke, it was like October. We literally met in the prior November. So 11 months later, he was like, let's just try now. And I was like, okay, like you really want kids. I found the right guy. And we were living together at this stage. We had 2 cats. We'd already been on a couple of holidays together. We'd planned a big holiday in the December. So we started trying, and I had been on the pill for 17 years, guys, 17 years, since I was 15. When I moved to Melbourne and out of home when I was 15, Mum was literally like, as soon as you know you're going to have sex, I'll give you the pill. She was just so worried. And so, of course, I had sex first and then told her I was about to have sex because who premeditates sex? Anyway, so weird. So anyway, ended up having sex and then was like, Mum, I think I'm going to have sex with this boy. Give me the pill. So I was 15 when I went on the pill. So yeah, came off the pill and we got pregnant straight away. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. You know, we got told that you might find it takes a few months after coming off the pill for so long. And we got pregnant straight away. And Chris literally had gone out that day and bought these cute little Converse and this beautiful card for me. He was so happy to be becoming a dad. And then I was off to Hamilton Island the next week with a girlfriend. And whilst on that holiday, gosh, I like to have miscarriages on holiday. This isn't good. Anyway, whilst I was on that holiday, I started getting some tummy cramps and I was like, oh no, what's happening? And this is when I had my first miscarriage. So I literally would have been like 5-6 weeks pregnant and I ended up having this miscarriage in Hamilton Island with my girlfriend on holiday, which was not ideal. But I suppose in true Danny form, I didn't want to let it completely ruin the time Kristen and I were having together. We were there celebrating the death of one of our friends. You know, it sounds weird celebrating the death of friends, but we put together this beautiful charity event after she died and we had won this trip to Hamilton Island. So we'd gone together to sort of celebrate her life. And so I didn't want those memories tainted as much either. So I picked myself up, I suppose smiled in the fact that I could now have a glass of wine. And she was really good. It was really nice to have her there. But obviously Chris was back home, very upset and worried about me. And we saw the doctor and I sort of said to him, oh, like, do we have to wait now? Like, he's like, no, you don't have to wait. You can go again. So I stopped bleeding maybe 3 or 4 weeks later. And then he said, you know, take the day of your miscarriages sort of the start of your period if you like, so then you'll be probably ovulating 4 weeks from then. Anyway, 4 weeks from then, Chris and I were going to be in LA. We would book this 4-week trip to America. We were going to do a car trip up the coast and then to New York and spend Christmas in New York together before flying back for my mum's 60th birthday party on New Year's Eve. If you've ever had a miscarriage the first time round, and actually when you've had any miscarriage, I feel like it gives you that sense of, yes, like now I want this more than ever. It gives me this yearning like, oh my God, now I really want it. Like I knew I wanted kids beforehand, but losing this baby for me, it was like a challenge for me, like let's make it work. So I literally said to Chris, we're having sex every 2 days from day 12. And he was like, oh God, okay. So literally had sex the day we left. Got to LA, got to the hotel room. He was like, let's have a shower. It's been a really long trip. And I was like, yeah, but we got to have sex. He was like, okay. He's like, I'm a little tired. I'm like, sorry, it's like a sex day. Anyway, so we had sex in LA. We then got a Mustang and drove up the coast. We stopped in Santa Barbara. We stopped in Monterey and Carmel for a night, maybe 2 nights. Got to San Francisco and then I was like, it's a sex day. And he's like, for God's sake. Anyway, in the hotel we were staying, it was a really cool hotel. I can't remember the name of it now. But the couple above us were like, they're going for it. And Chris was like, well, it's a sex day, so let's try and beat them. And I was like, what the hell? So it was a bit funny. Anyway, we worked out that that's probably the day that we actually conceived Harper. This day we were trying to compete with the couple next door having sex. So I think this must have been like day 16 or 18 by now. It's like, okay, you're kind of off the hook now. Like I wouldn't be ovulating now, but I think we've done a good job. Anyway, so we continued on our holiday. And we had such a good time, but I was also really conscious, like, you know, I love a drink, but I was really conscious I didn't want to drink much. I really wanted to look after myself on this holiday to give us the best chance of getting pregnant. We ended up flying to Vegas just for a night because I wanted to see the Chainsmokers, and it was so funny. We got there. Chris doesn't drink anyway, and, you know, sometimes having a drink does keep you awake, but we got there to Vegas thinking we would go and see the Chainsmokers. It said it started at 9. We thought maybe they'd be on by 11. Anyway, so we got there at like 10:30 night, which was just so late for us. I think we'd had a nap in the day to find out they weren't playing till 1 a.m. And I was like, are you kidding? Now, obviously, I didn't realize that I was pregnant, but I was already so tired. We ended up not seeing the Chainsmokers. We'd gone all the way to Vegas to see the Chainsmokers and didn't see them because we were both so tired. I think we played a couple of pokey games for like half an hour and then went back to our hotel room. We're like, that was a fun trip to Vegas to do nothing. But we did have some beautiful dinners and we went to Wahlburgers for lunch. So it was really nice. Anyway, we then went to Atlanta to see some friends and then off to New York. And on Christmas Day, my period was due. And I was like, this is perfect. So Christmas Day, I get up, do the pregnancy test, and we were pregnant. And it was the best Christmas present ever. It was awesome. Christmas Day in New York. It was very cold. It was snowing and it was just, it couldn't have been more perfect. And that was little Harper. So really uneventful pregnancy with Harper, which I was really grateful for. Wasn't too sick, really struggled with body image and eating around the first pregnancy. I'm not sure if that's just a common thing, but for me, I really struggled, with my body image and how I looked, but was just so grateful that we were pregnant and the pregnancy was going so well. So she was born on the 30th of August, 2018, and a little bundle of squishiness, 2.8 kilos, with an epidural, but vaginal birth, baby 5 pushes with a vacuum. And she was just perfect. Now, we did start to have a conversation at the back end of 2019 whether we actually wanted any more kids. We'd see parents with multiple kids and it just seemed like such a struggle. We were like, and Harper was just so great. We were like, she's such an easy child. Like, what if we had another one and it was really hard and then we resented it and didn't like it? And not didn't like it, but, didn't like each other. And what if it ruined our family dynamic? Like, maybe we just want one kid. Like, one kid is fine. Like, Chris is an only child. So then I was like, well, definitely not having one kid if it's going to turn out like you. But then, we were like, we could go on more holidays. We could do more things. Like, it makes things more accessible. And then at the start of 2020, Chris was in the park with Harper. And when he came back, he said, I think she needs a sibling. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, what happened? And he's like, she's just plays so well with other kids. There was an older kid there and a younger kid there, and she was just playing so well. She was having so much fun laughing. He was like, I just think she needs a sibling. And I was like, yeah, she's an extrovert. She's a wild child. She loves attention. She's fun. And we were like, yeah, okay. So at the beginning of 2020, we decided to start trying for another baby. Now, I had a really, I suppose you'd call it a chemical pregnancy at the start of 2020 after we got back from our holiday, and I had to change pills while I was over there because I forgot my pills. Like, isn't that the first thing on your freaking packing list when you go on holiday? Like, contraceptive pill. Anyway, so I had to change pills while I was over there, and sometimes when you change over pills, it doesn't work for a while, and obviously we got pregnant. So I had this chemical pregnancy, which was horrendously painful for what it was at the beginning of January 2020. And then, by the end of January, beginning of February, we were like, okay, let's try for another baby. Like, we got pregnant so easily the last couple of times. I got pregnant before I didn't even know I was pregnant. This is going to be a walk in the park. So we start trying. And then we weren't pregnant. And I was like, okay, that's okay. It's just the first try. We'll try again. So we try again. And nothing. And then as the year went on, and, remembering this is 2020, so come the March, I've lost my business. We've had to put our mortgage on hold. Like, it was a very stressful year. We've had to put our car loans on hold. We had to put our insurance on hold. I started actually making the figure into a business. So I was doing a lot of different things. We were in lockdown. So there's so much unknown in the world. But we really enjoyed lockdown with Harper. It was a bit like Groundhog Day. I don't know if you guys think the same, but we get up, go for a walk to this park, come back, she'd have a nap, we'd do whatever. In the afternoon, we'd do another walk. But I didn't feel like I was that stressed, but we kept not getting pregnant. And I suppose that added a level of stress. And if you've ever been through a trying to conceive journey, you know that people are like, all you have to do is chill out and relax and it'll happen. You're like, that's easier said than done when you're trying, because every month it's like a kick in the guts to think that you're not pregnant, especially when you think you're doing all the right things. I was fit, I was eating well, I was happy, I was getting enough sleep. We were all getting enough sleep in lockdown. We were doing all the right things. We were having sex at the right time, or what I thought it was the right time. I even got ovulation kits that told me when I was ovulating and said that I was ovulating. So I was like, we're definitely doing it at the right time. And what was going on though, my period was really short. So I was getting a period probably every 21 days. And then maybe once that year I got a 34-day period, and I didn't really understand. By the October, I was like, nah, something's wrong. And I was 35 at this stage. And I was like, I'm over 35. The doctor said, if you're over 35 and you've been trying for 6 months, you can see a fertility specialist. So we qualified for that. And then my obstetrician recommended a fertility specialist in the same hospital. So we've gone to do that. We've got all the tests. I've got my test. Chris has done his little sperm test in a little jar. And every time I think of that story, I just think of that Friends episode, when, is it Ross has to do the sperm and then Rachel's running through the park with the sperm? Or is it Monica and Chandler? I think it's Monica and Chandler. Is it them? I don't know. But that episode just comes to my head with Chris, doing his little sperm, making sure it stays cold and getting to the hospital on time. Anyway, so we go in for this appointment. Actually, I wasn't by myself for this appointment because Chris was working, to get the results. And I'm sitting there and he goes to us, not the best bedside manner, to be honest. He was like, well, Chris's sperm is perfect. And I was like, oh, great. Thanks. He was like, you on the other hand. And I was like, oh, what the fuck is wrong with me? And he was like, you have a severely low egg count. And he showed me this like chart. And he was like, here is you and your age and where we expect your egg count to be at your age. And as you can see, because you're a bit older, we do expect it to be lower. But then I could see my name down here. It's like, here's your egg count. And I was like, oh. He's like, it's severely low. He's like, the chances of you falling pregnant are slim to none. You're probably only releasing an egg once or twice a year. And that's if you happen to have sex at the right time those times a year. He's like, the reason your period is only 21 days long is because you're not actually releasing an egg. So you're producing all the hormones to release an egg, which is why the ovulation kits are showing that you're ovulating, because I'm producing the luteinizing hormone. I'm producing the follicle stimulating hormone, the FSH hormone, but I'm not actually releasing an egg. So my hormones are rising, nothing's coming out, so I'd have my period really early. He's like, that month that you said you had that 34-day period, he's like, that was the month you probably released an egg, but you probably weren't aware when you were actually releasing the egg because it's quite a long cycle. And so I was like, oh. So he's like, you have to do IVF. And that was not an option. Chris and I had already discussed it. We didn't want to do IVF. We had made a conscious decision that we didn't want to spend the money on that. We would rather spend the money on Harper, giving her experiences, all that sort of thing. It wasn't money we were willing to spend on IVF. We liked the fact that we conceived Harper naturally, and that was just something that was really important to me and Chris. And I know everyone's different in that space, but that was what we had decided. And so I said to him, is there anything else we can do? Like IVF's the only choice, like this or IVF? And he was like, oh, there's one other thing you can do. You can try ovulation induction, but there's no guarantees. I was like, well, there's no guarantees with IVF either. I was like, what's the cost of this? And it was really nothing compared to IVF. It was like, I think overall $1,500 with appointments and tests. And I was like, okay, what's this involved? So basically what it was doing the injections just like you do IVF. So giving yourself injections every day from day, I don't know what day it was, maybe day 8. And then going to see him on like day, I think it was like day 12, checking my follicles to see if the follicles had grown, and then giving me what was called a trigger shot to release the egg. And then we would have sex. And then hopefully, little science experiment, boom, a baby. And then I would have another shot after we had sex called Pregnol, which is basically progesterone to help the baby stick. Wasn't really hugely a fan of injecting myself, but I was like, let's do this. At least we can still have sex. We can still conceive it naturally. We're just going to have some help stimulating my follicle production.
Protein is so important for our overall health, and most people just don't get enough from food, which is where Happy Whey come in. I've been using their protein for over 5 years now and love that they're 100% natural. There's no artificial or chemically modified ingredients. They include powerful raw superfoods and organic ingredients. And best of all, they actually taste good. Drinking Happy Whey, I know I'm not just doing the best for me now, but I'm looking after future me as well. Click the link in the show notes and use HappyPod for a cheeky discount at checkout.
So we did this journey and, he told us all the pros and cons and, that there was an increased risk of twins, but I didn't really listen to that part, to be honest. I didn't really hear that part. I just wanted a baby. Anyway, so we went to our appointment on day 12 and he's doing the scan inside me. He's like, yeah, you've produced a really nice, good follicle at the start there. It's awesome. And he's like, oh, you produced another really nice one behind it. And then he went, don't release an egg from both. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you release an egg from both, then Chris fertilizes both of them. Then you're going to have twins. And we were like, what? And he was like, yeah. I was like, what are the chances of this happening? He's like, well, you got to release an egg from both to start with. And then Chris has to actually fertilize both of them. Like, it's, it's a small chance, but there's a chance. And I was like, okay, great. So anyway, we did this process. And then we found out when my period was obviously due that we were pregnant and we were so excited. Oh my God, the tears. I remember that day so well. We were in my dad's house in Canberra. It was Christmas time and we were just so excited. We both had tears in our eyes. Like it had worked first time and we were going to get our second baby. Now, my mum's a doctor. So whilst in Canberra, because I couldn't get back to Melbourne to get my blood tests while we were on holiday, Mum wrote me some blood test forms, which my fertility specialist was like, awesome, yes, go and get some blood tests now. So I went and got a blood test and the first blood test that came back was pretty high, like not overly high. Like I think my first ones with all the pregnancies have been like 150 or something. I have my HCG levels, but this was like 458 from memory, something like that. And I remember my mum going, that's really high. Like that's in line with like a 6-week pregnancy and you're only 4 weeks. We were like, okay, what do you mean? She's like, well, like it might be twins. And we were like, don't even joke. So then we went back the next week. So I got another test the next week, blood test, and they're supposed to double every 3 days, right? So if you think about a week, if they're going to double every 3 days, from 450, you would have got to like say 900 and then 1800. So it would have been around 2000, say. Got the blood test back. 10,500 was my HCG. My mum was like, this is twins. You've got twins. And I was like, I can't have twins. I don't want 3 children. My body can't take twins. Like, I'm not a big person. Like, I can't have twins. We can't afford twins. Like, I don't want 3 kids. Like, this is not like, no. And so I kind of put it in the back of my head, but obviously it was still there and Chris was freaking out. So we get back to Melbourne and have our appointment with a specialist at 6.5 weeks. And so we're lying there. He does the internal scan and he puts it up. And I said, oh, my mum thinks it's twins. And then he went, oh, she's right. I burst into tears. Chris said something along the lines of, oh, for fuck's sake, and then turned around with his head in his hands. And then the fertility specialist asked Chris what was wrong with me. Like, why is she crying? Is she happy? And Chris was like, I think she's in shock. And then he said to me, this is what I mean about the bad bedside manner. He said to me, why are you crying? I told you might not have any children and I'm giving you 2. And I was like, that's all well and good for you to say. You don't have to carry them and look after them. And I literally knew one person with twins, maybe 2. Like, I had one friend that was close to me with twins and the other friend was like living in Brisbane with like 4-year-old twins. Like, I didn't know anyone else with twins. And all I knew about twins was that was fucking hard work. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, we were really in shock. And I felt really guilty because, yeah, we wanted this baby so bad. But then getting told you're having 2, like, all the people that can't have babies will sit there and be like, you should have been grateful you got pregnant. Like, don't get me wrong. I was grateful as hell, but twins is massive, right? Like, when we had Harper, we found it so hard. Like, when you have your first baby and you have no idea what the fuck you're doing, it is so hard. She didn't sleep. We were tired. I didn't know what I was doing. It was hard. Like, we ended up sleep training her, so she ended up sleeping. But I was like, how do you do 2 at once? How do you settle 2 babies at once? How do you do anything with 2 babies at once? What if one needs something? Like, what the hell? Like, the things that went through our head. And I'm not going to lie, I reckon for 2 weeks there was a lot of tears. And the tears were a combination of what the fuck are we going to do to feeling a huge sense of guilt for feeling like that. Because, yeah, I should be grateful that I have a baby, but I was shit scared that I was going to have 2. Like, I already struggled with my body image with Harper from past experiences and my past trauma. And so I was like, how am I going to carry 2 babies? And what's my body going to look like afterwards? Is Chris still going to love me? Am I still going to feel confident? Am I going to get my strength back? Like, what is going to go on, you know? And the other thing I'd seen was lots of women that had masses of loose skin, not being able to run again, you know, all these different things, really early births, you know, babies not making it to full term and being in NICU for months and months and months. You know, it was a really scary thought. And then that combined with the guilt made me really emotional. But after about 2 to 3 weeks, we got our head around it and we started to embrace it. And we were like, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. This is going to be cool. And then we found out the genders. The obstetrician at my 12-week scan was like, I can see the genders if you want to know. And I was like, yes, I want to know. And I was like, Chris, you out of the room. I'm going to surprise you with a gender reveal. And he told us we were having 2 boys. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. 2 boys. Like, we had a girl, 2 boys. How awesome. And I did a massive gender reveal. It went crazy on Instagram. Everyone loved it. Chris is so over the moon with 2 boys. I think he thought potentially he couldn't produce that many boys. And it was just awesome until I had a dream. And it was just before our 16-week scan on the Friday night. We're having our scan on the Monday. And I had this dream that we're at this party. And I can still see it. It's so vivid in my head. I know exactly where we are in this party. We're all dressed up. And the obstetrician comes over to me and he goes, I'm going to deliver your baby now. And I'm like, no, it's not ready. He's like, it's fine. So in the middle of this cocktail party, I like literally pull this baby out of my vagina and he holds it in his arm in front of him and he looks at it and I'm like, that's not my baby. My baby's a boy's. That's got a vagina. He was like, no, this is definitely your baby. And it was a girl. And I woke up and I was like, oh my God, Chris, I just had the most vivid dream. I think we've got a girl in there. And he was like, are you sure? Preg said there was a boy. There was 2 boys. And I was like, no, I think one's a girl. And I could not stop thinking about it. And so we turned up at our appointment on Monday and I said, is it still 2 boys? And he said, did I tell you 2 boys? And I said, yeah. He was like, oh no, one's a girl, I think. He's like, you'll have to wait till the 20-week scan to be 100% sure. But I said, I'm pretty sure one's a girl. And I was like, stop it. So we'd had their names right. So we had to switch their names around because one was more boyish than the other. Obviously, Bo is more, a boy's name rather than a girl's name. But our boys were going to be Harlow and Beau. So Harlow and Beau obviously still ended up being Harlow and Beau, but we had to switch them around. But yeah, that was a bit crazy. Anyway, so we enter parenthood with 3 kids. You know, I had a very, again, unremarkable pregnancy with the twins. So the plan was to induce me at 37 weeks just to make sure that we could get them out healthy. And I'm, geriatric patient now. I was 36 when they were born. So I had my induction date. Nothing really went on, which was great. At 34 weeks, I did have a scan at Monash. As we get to that stage of twins, there's not much room in there, right? So there's a special scanner that could see more around the placentas and everything. And at that stage, Harlow was measuring 1.7 kilos and Beau was measuring about the same, I think, maybe 1.9. He was always measuring a little bit bigger. And at that point, I didn't realise, but either her placenta wasn't working properly or Beau was lying on it, a little chubber lying on her placenta, because she didn't actually grow after that. So the day of the induction, I go in, so excited. I'm going for a vaginal birth, double vaginal birth. My obstetrician's really confident. Beau has been head down for ages. I literally thought I was going to cough and he was going to literally come flying at my vagina. His head was so far down. My obstetrician said, I think it was at 36 weeks scan. He's like, I can feel his head if I put my fingers up there. And Chris is like, we are not having any more sex if that's the case. I got induced, started labour, came on really quickly, which is really great. That was about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Epidural went in at 10 and then at 12:33, 3 pushes, no assistance. Beau comes out perfect. All 2.7 kilos of him. So Beau was on my chest, it's beautiful, and he goes to look for Harlow. Right, he gets the scan. And she'd been transversed the whole time. My obstetrician said to me, what should happen is we'll get Beau out and she'll fall down, or I can manipulate her down into your cervix. So either head first or feet first. He's like, I don't mind her coming feet first, but she'll fall one way or another. Anyway, she didn't do quite what she was told, and in pure Harlow fashion decided to make a little bit of a fuss, my little foxy lady, and she put her butt and her back to my cervix. So instead of going straight down, she went sideways. She loved being transverse, obviously. And I remember seeing my obstetrician's face go, oh, fuck. Like I saw her mouth it, and I was like, what's wrong? And I remember giving Beau to the paediatrician because the paediatrician had to take him to special care anyway. He had a bit of jaundice and he was like, I'm so sorry, Danny. I can't get her out. He's like, I can't get her feet or her head. I can only feel her back or her bum. You're going to have an emergency cesarean. So obviously when you're in that stage, you just want your baby out healthy. You do not care what's going on. So they topped up my epidural quite a lot, took me down to theatre. They asked Chris if he wanted a sandwich in another room. He was like, no, my wife's about to have a baby in there. Can I go in? And it was really quick and really hectic in there. I ended up throwing up a lot with the drugs they were giving me. And what I didn't realise that Harlow came out, not only was she severely underweight at 1.8 kilos, but she wasn't breathing, which I found out later. I got to hold her briefly before she was taken up into the special care unit, into an incubator. And then I went off to recovery where I was really sick for a couple of hours. And my dear obstetrician comes in and he's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, that's the first time in 35 years I've ever had to do one of each with a twin birth. He's like, I've always either done 2 vaginals or 2 cesareans. He's like, I've never done the vaginal. And so he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, don't apologize. You got my babies out. Like, it's fine. It's fine. My vagina's ruined and my stomach's ruined. What of it? No, it was absolutely fine. And anyway, they ended up being in special care for 2 weeks. Beau could get out after 3 days, but then we wanted to leave him in with his sister because it was so much better for her to grow and them to be together. And it was so cute seeing in the bassinets together. And especially having Harper at home, leaving one baby in hospital and having one at home was just going to be too hard. So we left them both in special care for 2 weeks, which was the hardest 2 weeks of my life. If you've ever had a baby in NICU or special care, that 2 weeks felt like 2 years. So you mamas that have babies in special care and NICU for extended periods of time, I freaking feel you, because that 2 weeks felt like it never stopped. It felt like it went on and on and on. I felt like I was in Ubers every day, pumping milk into Uber, drop the milk off. Chris would drop milk off at all hours of the night. He'd drop milk off at like 10 p.m. at night, at 6 o'clock in the morning. I would then go in the day shift and I'd do the day shift. It was just, I hated being home. And it was really hard because we had Harper here, a 3-year-old here, and your heart is getting pulled. Like, I just wanted to be at the hospital, but I just wanted to be with her. Like, it was just so hard. Anyway, finally got home after 2 weeks and we started Happy Sleepers from the start. We just followed her advice and guidance from the start with regards to their sleep and their routines because, as I said at the start, our biggest fear was like not sleeping and not being in a routine where like being stressed and hating on each other. And I think when you've got multiple children, you've got to be a team. And Chris and I are such a good team and I knew that we had to be a team in that moment. Anyway, it would have been maybe like Not long after that, I reckon they were only like 6 weeks old, right? And we were standing in the kitchen and I said, I've booked you for a vasectomy. Like, I've done the initial form. You're going to get a call to book in the appointment to get a vasectomy. Like, we do not want any more kids. And he was like, it seems really final. And I was like, what? What? Yes, it is final because we don't want any more kids. He was like, yeah, but if I get it, like, what if we decide? He's like, these babies are so good. And he's like, I love having kids. I feel like he was in that newborn bubble stage as well, like, oh, more kids. And I was like, are you serious? He was like, well, I just don't want to go and then like regret it. Like, it just seems really final. Like, and also he's like, you got told you can't fall pregnant naturally anyway. So he's like, what are the chances of us actually falling pregnant? I was like, I've heard these stories though, babe. I've heard these women that have been on IVF for years and years and years and years and years, and then all of a sudden they get pregnant naturally. I was like, watch, that'll be us. Anyway, so he decided against vasectomy. And to be honest, we didn't really think much about it. I didn't even really notice when we were having sex so much, as in I wouldn't be like, oh, it's day 14. Make sure you pull out or don't come inside me. It didn't really cross my mind. And my periods were continually 21 days. I knew I wasn't ovulating from what my fertility specialist had said. And so then I think once during that 18 months from when the twins were born to February last year, I think I had one 34-day cycle. And that was so scary because we were like, are we pregnant? I was like, no. So didn't get pregnant. So in 18 months, we did not get pregnant. So from August 2021 to February 2023, Chris and I have a good sex life, okay? We have sex, 2 to 3 times a week, and we didn't get pregnant. But then I remember him saying, oh, no, I don't want 4 now. Like, the kids go through ups and downs when they were being little shits. Chris would be like, I do not want 4. Like, well, if you don't want 4, you're going to have to stop coming in me, or you have to go get a vasectomy. Because I'm not going on any contraception. I was not going back on the pill. I didn't want to be on any hormones. And he wouldn't go. I was like, well, this is up to you. You are playing with fire here. So yeah, January 2023, Harper and I were in quite a bad car accident down in Canberra and it was quite traumatic. Anyway, I got home and Chris obviously was really emotional, like we hadn't been with him, and we did have sex when we got home. Probably more of a like, you're still alive, I love you, I love you, I love you. Anyway, 2 weeks later, my period still hadn't come because it usually comes on day 21, and I was like, maybe this is a longer period cycle, maybe I did ovulate, not thinking that it would be from that. And we're sitting on the couch and I was like, Chris, your feet stink. And he was like, I just showered. I was like, well, they stink of feet. And he put his foot near my nose and I was like, oh, it actually doesn't smell, but something smells of feet. And he looked at me and he went, are you pregnant? And I was like, can you not smell the feet? And he was like, I can't smell the feet. And I was like, oh my God. So I called Brooke and I was like, Brooke, where are you? Are you near a shop? Can you go get me a pregnancy test? So she went and got a pregnancy test. And I was pregnant. And we were like, what the hell? Like, what? No way. And to be honest, again, we were like, shit, this can't be happening. Like, what, 4 kids? What the hell? Like, our 3 are crazy. We just got back from England and it was crazy. Like, we had the best time, but traveling with 3 kids is hectic. And we were like, 4? Again, I had this mix, like, oh my God, I felt guilty, but then I was excited. And then I had some blood tests done. They went up once, they went up twice, and then they weren't really going up a huge amount. And I was sitting on the deck. Chris was at football one Saturday, and Harper goes, why have you got blood on your panties? So it would have been about 7 weeks. We had gone for a scan that morning and he said it was too early to see a heartbeat. He's like, you're only showing at 6 weeks. And I was like, oh, it doesn't feel right, but still thought, no, it's fine. My blood tests are up, I'll get another one. And then, Harper said, you've got blood on your panties. And I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, oh my God, we're losing it. And then it was really weird, we lost it. It was just me and Chris at home. Harper didn't know we were pregnant. We've been through a miscarriage and it was quite painful. So I spent a lot of time in the shower, waiting for it to pass and all that sort of thing. And I just felt really down in the dumps, I was like, maybe it's not meant to be. Yeah, maybe this is going to teach me something, I don't know. And I thought maybe this was the good thing that was happening out of the car accident. But yeah, it was sad. But because we didn't think we were going to get pregnant again, it was but yeah, it was weird. It was just a weird time and weird emotions. And every time you get pregnant, you start to imagine your life with that child in it. So it doesn't really matter if it's 7 weeks or 13 weeks. Anyway, the whole premise was then, well, we didn't get pregnant in 18 months. We've been pregnant now, so we're probably not going to get pregnant again for another 18 months because we seem to not be able to get pregnant that often. And so we'll just let it go to bed again. So it was like, but there was this little yearning in my belly, right? Like, maybe we do want another child. Like, maybe I do. Like, I've imagined life with it in it now. Anyway, we just kept going on, as normal. And then I'd done the Great Ocean Road Half Marathon in the May, and then on, I think it was the 6th of June, again, my period hadn't come, and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm pregnant. I feel like us women just know. And again, got a pregnancy test, and we were pregnant again. I couldn't believe it, especially after the first time, car accident, stressful situation. Ran a half marathon Great Ocean Road, very strenuous on the body, and it was a really hard run, which I don't usually get pregnant when I'm running. But literally the night we got back from the Great Ocean Road run, I got back from the we had sex, and that was the night we conceived. I'm like, oh my God, like another stressful time in my life. Like probably different stress, right? But like good stress. And we were pregnant again. And of course, you can imagine the anxiety. I was like, I just wanted to get that 7-week scan and see a heartbeat. And my bloods were going up, and we got to the scan, and Chris's reaction was just beautiful. Like he saw that little heartbeat, and, you know, he's just such a beautiful guy, and he just burst into tears. And I was like, oh, look, our little baby, it's fine. Anyway, we were leaving for Europe the next week. We were leaving for Europe when I was 8 weeks pregnant, and we weren't going to get back until I was 14. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to miss our 12-week scan. We're going to miss doing the NIPT test earlier. But, you know, my obstetrician was like, fine, it's very early. Like, just go and have fun on your holidays. So we had the best holiday. We went to England to Becky's wedding, Chris's cousin's wedding. We went to Sicily for a week, to the south of France for a week, and went with one of my girlfriends there. And then to Mallorca for a week. We spent all Chris's family there and went to a beautiful wedding with our friends before quickly heading back to England, and then we're going home. We had the best holiday. My boobs were growing. My tummy was growing. I was feeling nauseated in the mornings. I did get a bit of food poisoning in Sicily, and I was running quite a lot because I was training for a marathon, which I was still hoping to do.
Do you want to eat better, move more, and just feel your best but are not sure where to start? Does the thought of going to a gym literally feel impossible? Introducing Fit by the Figure, your one-stop shop for holistic health, movement, and nourishing foods the whole family will actually eat. Head to the show notes for your 7-day free trial.
Pregnant. So I felt like everything was fine. With this pregnancy though, this was a bit weird. I knew something was going to happen. I had this really weird, I thought, you know, I kept saying to myself, you're just thinking that because you're scared. You're just thinking that because you're scared. And I remember seeing someone have a miscarriage at 14 weeks, and I went, that's going to be me. I think that's going to be me. Something bad is going to happen. You know, I didn't want to talk about names. I didn't want to share it until 12 weeks. I didn't want to start even looking at clothes. I was like, no. Like, no, something's wrong. So, not something, I just didn't want to, right? There's a lot of anxiety. I was like, what if we lose it? Anyway, the day we were leaving to come home, I get quite anxious flying. So I sometimes get some like tummy cramps when I fly because I have IBS, so my stress flares that up. And I had a little tummy cramp. And I was like, oh, I just think it's just my anxiety. Like, it's just my bowel. You know, your bowel and your freaking uterus are so close. You never know what's going on. Anyway, we get to the airport. I go to the toilet, and there's a tiny bit of blood. And I'm like, surely not. And it was brown. It wasn't red. I got Brooke to call my obstetrician back in Australia, and he was like, if it's not bright red, then you should be fine. So we get on the plane. A few hours in, the blood gets redder and more. The tummy cramps start getting worse. And then by 8 hours into this flight, I am in pain. I am in so much pain. They ended up calling to see if there's a doctor on board. There wasn't. There was a nurse. They ended up calling to make sure that when we arrived in Singapore that the medical staff were there to take me straight to hospital. And I knew we were losing our baby. I knew it. I knew something was going to happen, and this was it. So we ended up spending 5 nights in hospital. I lost our baby the night before my birthday in Singapore at 11 o'clock at night. And I got to see it, a little baby, 13 and a half weeks, looked like a child, looked like a baby, had arms, legs, could see its eyes. And it was fucking devastating, to be honest, really devastating. And it's probably the most traumatic thing that's happened to me, and it really hit me hard. At the same time, I had this really mirrored emotion where I was devastated as fuck, and it was hard. And seeing Chris so upset was so hard. He was so good with the kids. He was holding it together. And then my mum ended up flying over, looking after the kids. And when he came over, seeing him that upset, and I remember him saying, we have to have another baby. And I'm like, oh no. He's like, we need to have another baby. I'm like, I know, babe. And so I said, okay, we'll skip to the end of the year then, right? Like, I'm 40 in 2025. We've got this big plan to go overseas for my 40th. I want to be feeling strong. I want to be feeling confident. I can't be like 2 months postpartum. If we finish at the end of the year, then it gives me enough time. And I don't want to be 40-year-old new mum anyway. He's like, let's give it till May. He's like, how much time do you need to get back in shape? I was like, at least 9 months. And he was like, okay, we'll try till May. He's like, my birthday will be the last time we try. And so it was implanted then. We were like, we have to have 4 kids. Like, I need this 4th child. This 4th child is supposed to be with us. And for whatever reason, this child has not made it. I remember thinking, I'm doing a marathon. I've got a release of my app. I've got so much going on. Maybe this is why I'm not supposed to have this baby, but we are supposed to have a 4th child. Anyway, so that was August. So we obviously kept technically trying, have our sex regularly, making sure we're having sex on ovulation days, 21-day period, 20-day period. And then at the beginning of December, Chris says to me, I don't know if I want 4 kids anymore. And like, it hit me in the heart like a sledgehammer. And I was like, what? He was like, I just don't know if I want 4 kids anymore. He's like, the twins are out of nappies. There's times when I'm really struggling with their emotions. I think maybe we just give it to the end of the month. Are you okay with that? And you know what? I wasn't. It really upset me. I had a bit of a cry, that I had to respect him as well. And so I was like, yep, okay, that's fine. My period arrived on the 17th of December and I was like, that's done. That's our last month. It was upsetting. And then we were in Canberra for Christmas and we decided to drive home on the 30th. And just before we drove home, I knew that I was ovulating. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm ovulating, Chris. Like, as a girl, like I was juicy down there. There was a lot going on down there. And because I don't ovulate every month, it was very clear that I was ovulating. And so we got back to Canberra and I was like, we have to have sex. Once we were back in Melbourne, we had sex New Year's Day. And then we went to Byron Bay on the 8th of January. And in Byron Bay, my boobs started getting really sore. And I said to Chris, I think I'm pregnant. He was like, well, let's do a test. Did a test in Byron Bay, negative. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm just willing my body to be pregnant. Like, he hadn't had time to book in for a vasectomy yet. He was going to get one in January. My boobs are sore. Did another test, negative. Then got back to Melbourne. And then he didn't know this, but I went and got a pregnancy test. I was like, I'm just going to do one more. It was day 29. So my period absolutely should have been here. And it was positive. And it was just the most amazing feeling of joy. But at the same time, the fear and the anxiety set in straight away. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I'm nervous and scared. And I was like, I just don't want to have too much positivity. And I just don't want to, I'm not going to think too much into it. I'm just going to take it shares as it comes. I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm just going to be really blasé about it. And he was like, you can try and ignore it and you can not be excited about it and pretend that you're okay, or you can enjoy it. You can enjoy every minute, every second that you're pregnant and enjoy the now, because if you lose it, it doesn't matter if you've enjoyed it or not. You're going to be just as sad. I was like, you're so right. And I was like, I'm pregnant now. So let's celebrate that I'm pregnant now. And it was really weird. After that first scan, 7-week scan to make sure it was okay. And yes, we've had 3 scans so far. So I'm 11 and a half weeks. We've got another scan on Monday. And every scan I get scan anxiety I just want to make sure everything's okay. But I've got all the good symptoms. But after that first scan especially, I really have just been living in the moment, living the day and celebrating this little baby. Because I thought as well, imagine going through the whole pregnancy, anxious and scared and fearful and stressed and not enjoying it and hating it and not living to my full potential. And I've got 3 other kids at home and a husband that need me in the best possible mind space. And I've got loads of clients that also need me. Imagine going through this whole pregnancy and being overwhelmed, anxious, and then it all being okay. And then the memory of that pregnancy for that baby is going to be one of negativity. And every time I think of that pregnancy, I would think, oh, I hated that pregnancy. I hated your pregnancy. I was anxious the whole time. I was nervous the whole time. Couldn't wait for you to be out. And then I said to myself, or I could enjoy every day and celebrate every day that I'm pregnant. And then I will enjoy it more. I'll be a better mama to my kids. I'll be a better wife. I'll be a better coach. I'll be a better friend. And then, God willing, this baby comes into the world absolutely fine. Then I have the best memories of that pregnancy. And I can tell that baby how strong your mummy was and how positive she was and how much she enjoyed your pregnancy and loved being pregnant with you. Because if something does go wrong, it doesn't matter either way. Because what if it does go right? And I think, I talk about all the time, everyone always thinks of the negative what ifs. What if I can't do this? What if I fail? What if I'm this? What if I'm bad? But what if it's not? What if it's beautiful? What if it's amazing? What if it's everything you ever wished for? What if everything is absolutely fine? And I use Marie Forleo's little thing because, I do get anxious. What's the best possible outcome in this scenario? I have my baby in my arms in September and he is absolutely fine. What's the absolute worst that can happen? I have another miscarriage. Well, what are the chances of the best thing happening? Pretty high. I have 3 healthy babies. What are the chances of the other thing happening? Well, I have had 4 miscarriages, but the chance of miscarriage is 1 in 4. So hopefully I've done my share of miscarriages. And then what can I control? I cannot control either outcome. So why not enjoy it and focus on the good outcome? Because if I focus on the negative outcome, I've just wasted stress. I've wasted anxiety. I've wasted happiness along the way, because every day we're on this planet is a bloody blessing. And I want to enjoy every day I'm here, and life has a funny way of working out and gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. And I think there are always lessons in every shit thing that happens in life. And the other thing is, when this baby greets us with its presence, those last 2 miscarriages made way for this baby. So I had to go through that to then have the empathy and gratitude for this one. So the anxiety has sort of gone. And yes, every time I get like a little funny tummy, I'm like, oh, is everything okay? But then I wake up nauseated and I feel really bloated and my boobs are freaking massive and I think everything's okay. And I am having scans every 2 weeks just to put my mind at peace and to know that everything's okay. And that's all we can do, is focus on the now. And I really challenge anyone that's going through something similar to switch that mindset, because you are pregnant now. You cannot control what is going to happen, and you can't control what has happened, and that's in the past. And every day that you are pregnant is a blessing, and every day you're on earth is a blessing. And so enjoy it, embrace it. And you have gotten through all the things you've gotten through before. So you will get through all these new things again. And every time something negative is happening, it is just setting you up for the next thing, because that next thing is coming. That I'm sure of, because that's life. And so we have to experience the shit. We have to experience the lows. We have to fail. We have to have these fucking terrible moments in life to teach us lessons and to help us cope with the other things that are coming in life, because the other things are coming. So we definitely want 4 kids. This baby is all my babies are so loved, but this baby is my double rainbow, and it's going to come into the world. And all of the shit that I've been through in the last 2 years is worth it, is absolutely worth it. If you're trying to conceive, keep going, don't give up. Live the best, healthiest life you can. If you are going through miscarriage, I feel you, I see you, it's shit. And in the moment, it's so hard to be practical in your thoughts. I had so many beautiful messages when I had my second miscarriage last year. And then it was this odd, every 2 messages that were like, it's just your body doing what it's meant to do. It just knows it's not okay. And 6 months on, I can totally say that. I can totally say, yeah, you know what? This baby wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be earthside. Something about the pregnancy was not okay. And this baby, but I can't fucking see that in the moment of miscarriage. You don't want to hear that. You don't want to see that. And so if you're going through it, I feel you. Sit with your grief. Talk about it. Talk about the emotions, get it out. It's better out than in. You'll actually find that more people have gone through what you're going through than you think. You're not alone, but talk about it and then move on, and then enjoy the now and enjoy the future and whatever the future holds, because that's what's coming. You can't do anything about the past, and all we do is learn from it. I've had so many questions from you guys actually around balancing everything, including being pregnant, and heaps of questions around how I'm adjusting my fitness routine as well. Now, both of those things could definitely fill their entire episodes. So if there's some things that you want to hear more about, please send me a DM over at __ on Instagram and let me know.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If something resonated with you, click follow so you don't miss the next episode, and send me a DM on Instagram at _. It means the world to me to know that you're loving these episodes. If you're wanting more accountability and tools to implement changes in your life, head to the link in the show notes and book a free call with me. And if you want to get started right now, download our free resource, 5 simple things that will change your life. I can't wait to be back in your life next week, and trust me, you won't want to miss this episode.